All right, guys, today we're going to talk about something that probably every politician in Massachusetts hopes that you never find out. All right. I'm talking about some levels of a deep, decades-long corruption that runs this state. And as you know, this is not one case or one scandal or like one isolated incident or even one bad actor. You know, the Commonwealth here has a system that's designed to protect the powerful and keep the money flowing in all of the wrong directions. And a lot of people assume Massachusetts is just about historic landmarks or big brand universities and diehard sports fans. But behind the scenes, this state is running, in my opinion, one of the most well-organized corruption machines in the entire country. And today I'm going to pull back the curtains on some of that for you. I want to share a story with you from the early 90s. So let me take you back in time here. Let's go back in time a little bit. I'm going to share something with you that should have been a case that was opened and closed, but it's still going on today. And that is the Jason Davis story. Now, if you've never heard of him, that's more than likely not by accident. That is by design. So what happened is the state of Massachusetts has effectively buried this case for over 3 decades, solely because it exposes just how deeply and broken our so-called justice system actually is. So let me catch you up to speed here, just a little bit. Jason was a 28-year-old kid in 1993. And back then, he was committed to the Westborough State Hospital for treatment. He wasn't in prison or anything like that. He wasn't convicted of anything. He was just in a state-run mental health facility where he was supposed to be safe and taken care of. But instead, what unfortunately happened was he was brutally beaten by a group of staff members, including a man named Philip Bragg, who had just gotten out of prison for attempted murder after shooting another kid in the face. Yes, you heard that right. An ex-con was hired at the governor at the time. His name was Bill Weld. He was hired under his watch. Despite a DOJ report, if you start to look at the data here, back in 89, it showed that 68% of felons like Philip here often committed another felony or another offense within the first 3 years. So yeah, the state of Massachusetts knowingly hired a violent felon to take care of mentally ill patients. It was at this hospital, and it was, I believe, in August of 93, from memory, that Jason was beaten to the point where blood was pouring from his eyes, his nose, and his mouth, and then he was strapped down to a restraining table, and he ended up, or was, choking on his own blood for over an hour. The kid barely survived, but these, let's say, injuries in this event left him permanently traumatized, and he ended up passing away in 2004 from alcohol poisoning that his attorney, Christopher Perry, pointed out and linked that position that he was in. Now, Christopher has been and continues to be the relentless force behind Jason Davis's fight for the last 32 years. He's an attorney out of Holliston, and he's been really advocating in regards to this, and he just won't let this go, at least based on what I've been reading. So, Massachusetts attempted to bury this level of injustice in 1998. Chris won, and a federal judge ruled in Jason's favor, awarding his family $2.7 million in damages. In, I would say, today's value with interest, originally it was around $2.1 million, but if you, I guess, adjust it over time, it's closer to $2.7. But of course, guess what happened? They are still waiting for that money as of today. Ridiculous. So what happened is Massachusetts ended up pulling every legal trick in the book to avoid this payment. The state claimed something called sovereign immunity, which essentially means that the government cannot be sued or held financially liable unless they explicitly consent to it. In other words, even if a court rules against the state, it does not have to pay damages unless it agrees to be held accountable. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up. It sounds completely backwards. How can a government be found guilty but still refuse to pay? It just blows my mind. That, in essence, I think is the loophole that they are hiding behind and how they're getting out of having to pay this money. So then what happened is they decided to dump this case on the felon Bragg, who I mentioned earlier, and he was arrested after this beating. But apparently, of course, he didn't have $2.1 million at the time just lying around. Again, you can't make this stuff up. It sounds completely backward. How can the government be found guilty but still refuse to pay? It's unbelievable. So now the state, or I should say the state, was pointing to individuals that were hired. And of course, they hired those individuals. And they're trying to take the liability off of themselves, even though Jason's case set national precedents and has been cited over 300 times for mentally ill rights. So to put it simply, the Massachusetts government refused to take on their accountability. Period. End of story. Now, over the course of time, there has been 7 governors throughout history, including Weld, Cellucci, Swift, Romney, Patrick, Baker, and now, of course, Healey. And Healey is in the midst of the fight right now. There's a case out there that was filed in 2023, which was Davis versus Healey. And they've basically just sat on this case and have done absolutely nothing. Even the attorney general promised justice and then conveniently forgot when it came to the time to pay. Again, it's really ridiculous circumstances. So even the legislature, this went into the legislature. They tried stepping up, and Davis's attorney, Chris Perry, filed 7 bills around 2014. In a 152-0 vote in the House and a 39-0 vote in the Senate to get the family paid. They ended up passing these bills to compensate the Davis family, only to have them vetoed or left to rot, for lack of a better term. And it's been 32 years. Jason Davis's father, William, who was around 54 years old at the time, he's 86 years old now, and is still fighting for the money that legally belongs to his son. The reason, I will tell you this, the reason that I wanted to bring this to your attention and talk about this today is because I've gotten multiple cases like this that people want me to cover, and I decided to do this one today. And I really want you to understand something. If you think that this is some isolated case or some isolated incident, it's not. You really need to take a look at the bigger picture here. Massachusetts has a long history of, let's say, paying when it wants to, because this Commonwealth has, an unwritten rule, which is the only time to pay is when it benefits them the most. When a payout might expose just how corrupt and incompetent the system really is, they will drag it out and bury it under legal technicalities, or it seems like they are waiting for time to take the families of the victims. It's crazy. So, I've been saying this a long time now. This type of corruption is everywhere here. It's everywhere. I know it's in a lot of other states too, but it's very heavy in Massachusetts, as you know. And this state, when you really boil it down, I feel like it puts on this facade or it talks a big game about justice and fairness and so on and so forth. But in reality, it's just one big giant cover-up operation, or it's completely one-sided. So whether it's a, let's say, mentally ill man being beaten or violent criminals being allowed to work for state-run facilities, the same theme runs through it all. The government here does not work for you. And I'm willing to bet if I did a little bit more investigating on how this Bragg person got hired in the first place, this story would go even further down the rabbit hole, because it's all about who you know, and that's how it goes. So the Commonwealth, this Commonwealth, it works for itself, and it works for, let's say, its ideologies. It works for the elite and the politically connected, and the ones who know how to play this game the most. And if you are one of us, if you're an average citizen trying to get by, I guess it's just too bad. They don't care about you, but that's how it goes, I guess. That's just how it goes. So I'm going to do a deeper dive into what's going on here and see if I could connect some of the dots on what I think is happening. But overall, that's it for today's video, guys. I will see you on the next one. Have a good day. Bye-bye.